Ethan Brooks sat alone in his office, high above the restless hum of Crestwood, the city's lights flickering through the wide windows like a promise he'd made to himself years ago. The room was dim, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows. Across the cluttered desk, spreadsheets, expansion proposals, a half-empty coffee mug gone cold. At 42, he turned Brooks Eatery from a single greasy spoon into a local legend, 4 locations now, each one a brick-and-mortar echo of his grind, built on a simple vow: a meal for everyone. It was his win, a fist raised against the world that had once told him a kid from the wrong side of town couldn't make it big. But tonight, as he rubbed the tension from his neck, that victory felt hollow, fraying at the edges with a nagging doubt he couldn't shake. He scrolled through emails, the usual mix of investor pitches and supply chain updates, when one subject line snagged his eye, stark and unassuming. What's happening at Brooks Eatery? It was from a name he vaguely recalled: Jenny Carter, a regular from the early days when he'd still slung plates himself. His gut tightened as he clicked it open, the words hitting him like a cold splash of water, sharp and unfiltered. "Dear Mr. Brooks," it began, "I've been coming to your Crestwood main location for years. Loved it since it was just a hole in the wall with the best coffee in town. It felt like family back then, like you cared. But my last visit broke my heart. The staff were cold, distracted, like I was an inconvenience. Worse, I saw an old man washing dishes get treated like dirt, snapped at, laughed at, right in front of customers. He was kind to me, asked about my kids, but the others acted like he didn't belong. I thought Brooks Eatery was different. Meal for everyone, right? What's going on? I hope you see this. Jenny Carter." Ethan's breath caught, his fingers hovering over the keys as he read it again, slower, each line sinking deeper, a dull ache spreading through his chest. Jenny wasn't just a customer, she was a piece of his past, one of the faces who kept him going when the bank laughed at his loan application, when the power got cut and he'd cooked by candlelight. She'd believed in him, in the diner. And now this, a quiet plea wrapped in disappointment, a mirror held up to something he'd let slip. He shoved the laptop back, standing fast enough to send his chair skittering across the hardwood, and paced to the window, the cool glass pressing against his palms as he stared out at Crestwood's jagged skyline. Rain streaked the streets below, blurring the neon into a hazy glow, but his mind was razor-sharp, replaying every word. A meal for everyone. He'd scratched that slogan into the first menu with a stubby pencil. A promise born from nights eating stale bread because his mom couldn't afford more, from watching his dad get turned away at nice places for wearing work boots instead of loafers. Brooks Eatery was supposed to be the opposite, a spot where anyone with a few bucks got a seat, a smile, a plate that said they mattered. The numbers backed him up, sales steady across the chain. Reviews still solid, 4 stars on Yelp, even at Crestwood, Maine. But Jenny's email cut through that like a knife. Turnover was up, too, staff dropping like flies, and profits at the flagship had dipped 5% despite packed tables. He chalked it up to growing pains, new hires, the grind of expansion, but this cold staff, an old man treated like dirt, felt personal, a betrayal of the soul he'd poured into this place. That ache turned hot, a slow burn of anger and guilt twisting together. He'd been too busy lately, board meetings, site scouting, shaking hands with suits who cared more about margins than meals, to walk the floors like he used to. The last time he'd hit Crestwood, Maine was 6 months back, a quick handshake with the manager, Nora something, before jetting off to pitch investors. Had he missed the rot creeping in? He snatched his phone from the desk, dialing Tom Wheeler, his assistant since the days they'd shared a folding table in a rented office, dreaming up the chain over burnt coffee. Tom picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice groggy but alert. "Ethan? It's late. What's wrong?" "Everything, maybe," Ethan said, pacing back to his chair, his voice rougher than he meant. Got an email from a regular Jenny Carter. Remember her? Says Crestwood, Maine's gone cold. Staff treating an old dishwasher like trash. Turnovers up. Profits are off. I've been blind, Tom. What the hell's happening in my own house? A pause stretched, then Tom's tone sharpened, waking fast. Crestwood, Maine? That's Nora Ellis's spot numbers look fine on paper. Steady. Traffic. You thinking it's deeper? Damn right I do. Ethan snapped, sinking into his seat, the leather creaking under him. Jenny's not macking this up. She's been with us since day one. I'm going in tomorrow quiet, no heads up. Book me a rental car. Nothing flashy. No company logo. I need to see it raw. Tom chuckled soft, a knowing edge cutting through. The haze. Undercover boss, huh? Like when you caught that supplier skimming flour in year 2. Ethan's lip twitched, the memory flickering a week posing as a delivery guy, nailing a crook who'd cost him thousands. Yeah, something like that, he said, his tone steadying. This ain't about flour, though it's personal. If my people are screwing this up, if they're hurting folks I swore to serve, I need the truth, no filter. Got it, Tom said, keys clicking fast in the background. Car's set pickup at 9 a.m., Crestwood lot. I'll dig into staff records tonight, see if anything pops, turnover spikes, complaints, whatever. You good? Ethan exhaled, slow and heavy. Not yet, but I will be. Keep your phone on. Tom, this might get messy. Always does with you. Tom shot back, a grin in his voice before the line clicked off, leaving Ethan alone with the silence. He crossed the room to a coat rack by the door, yanking it open with a tug that rattled the frame. He rifled through, bypassing a crisp blazer for a pair of faded jeans and a worn flannel shirt soft from years of wash, the kind of outfit that blended into a dire crowd. He grabbed an old baseball cap from the shelf, its brim frayed, and swapped his polished loafers for scuffed sneakers. The soles worn thin from pacing construction sites in the early days. No watch, no wallet with embossed initials, just Ethan. Brooks, customer, not Ethan Brooks, chain owner who graced local headlines and Chamber of Commerce dinners. He stepped to the mirror, tugging the cap low over his eyes, his dark stubble catching the light 3 days without a razor. Just enough to rough him up. If they don't know me, he murmured, meeting his own hard gaze, they'll show. Need what I've let happen, what I've missed. He smirked, a flicker of resolve cutting through the guilt, and grabbed his keys, not the fob to his sleek SUV parked downstairs, a custom job he'd splurged on after the 3rd location opened. But a spare set for the rental Tom would snag. He slipped out of the office, the soft click of the door echoing in the empty hall as he nodded to the night janitor on his way to the elevator. Heading out, Carl, he said, his voice casual, like he was grabbing a burger instead of launching. A mission. Carl waved back, oblivious, and Ethan rode down to the garage, the hum of the city seeping in as he stepped out. The rain had eased to a mist, slicking the pavement under the streetlight's sodium glow, and he slid into his backup car, a beat-up sedan he kept for low-key runs. The engine coughed to life, a gritty rumble that matched his mood, and he pulled. Out into Crestwood's wet streets, his mind locked on tomorrow. The rental was waiting at 9 a Main, a plain gray hatchback parked in a lot near Crestwood, Maine, unremarkable and perfect. Ethan picked it up, the keys cold in his hand, and drove through town, the mist clinging to the windshield, wipers swiping slow as he wound past brick storefronts and neon signs. Brooks Eatery, Crestwood, Maine loomed ahead, a squat, welcoming building with big windows and a red awning, nestled between a hardware store and a dry cleaner. He pulled into a side street a block away, parking under a sagging oak, far enough to stay off the radar. He killed the engine, leaning back as he took it in, the sign glowing, shadows moving inside, the faint clatter of plates spilling out. His chest tightened, a mix of pride and dread knotting up inside. This was the heart of his chain. The spot where he'd flipped burgers at 3 to make payroll, where Jenny Carter had sat with her kids, laughing over milkshakes. Now it was slipping, and he hadn't seen it, hadn't wanted to, maybe too busy chasing the next win. He adjusted his cap, the brim shadowing his eyes, and stepped out into the damp air, the scent of rain and grease mixing as his sneakers hit the pavement. He tugged his collar straight, took a slow breath, and started toward the door, his pulse quickening with every step. Whatever waited inside, truth, rot, or a fight he hadn't bargained for, he'd face it head-on, no turning. Back now. Ethan Brooks pushed through the double doors of Brooks Eatery, Crestwood, Maine. The familiar chime of the bell above his head, swallowed by the lunchtime clamor that filled the air. The scent hit him first: grilled bread, frying bacon, the sharp tang of coffee brewing behind the counter mixing with the warm hum of chatter and the clatter of plates. The place buzzed under fluorescent lights, a cozy sprawl of red vinyl booths and chipped formica tables, the walls lined with faded photos of Crestwood's old days and framed clippings touting the diner's rise. Outside, the late morning mist clung to the windows, streaking the view of the street, but inside, it was a world Ethan had built his first triumph, now teetering on an edge he'd come to uncover. He adjusted the brim of his baseball cap, the frayed flannel loose on his shoulders, and drifted toward the counter, his sneakers scuffing the worn linoleum. He was just a guy here, no suit, no title, testing the promise he'd etched into this place. A meal for everyone. The diner was in full swing. Waitresses darted between tables, balancing trays of burgers and milkshakes, their aprons stained with ketchup and coffee splashes. Line cooks barked orders through the pass. 2 specials, no onions. While the cash register chimed with a steady rhythm, a pulse Ethan used to measure success. Customers filled the space, a construction crew in dusty vests, a mom with 2 kids coloring menus, an old-timer nursing coffee at the counter's end, each one a thread in the tapestry he'd woven over 15 years. He slid onto a stool at the far end of the counter, where the view stretched wide: booths, kitchen window, the whole operation laid bare. Pride flickered in his chest, a reflex from years of fighting for this, but Jenny Carter's email, cold. Staff, an old man treated like dirt, gnawed at it, turning every clink of a fork into a question. He pulled a laminated menu from the rack, the edges curled from use, and scanned it like he didn't know every item by heart. A young cashier approached. Her name tag read Claire, her blonde ponytail tight, her smile thin and perfunctory. "What'll it be?" she asked, barely glancing up from the notepad in her hand, her voice flat over the din. "Turkey Club." "Black coffee," Ethan said, roughening his tone just enough to sound like a stranger, sliding a crumpled 20 across the counter. Claire nodded, scribbling fast, and rang it up, her fingers tapping the register with a practiced flick. As she turned to call the order, "Turkey Club, stat," Ethan's eyes drifted past her, catching a figure moving slow and steady near the dish station at the kitchen's edge. It was an older man, Samuel Hayes. He'd guess, if Jenny's old dishwasher was the clue rail thin with a shock. Of white hair poking from under a faded cap, his apron soaked dark at the waist. He stacked plates with a careful precision that stood out against the chaos: waitresses rushing, cooks shouting, trays clashing, but his pace was deliberate, his gnarled hands steady despite the tremble Ethan clocked when he lifted a heavy stack. Mid-70s, maybe older, his face lined deep with years, but his eyes were sharp, darting over the room like he saw more than he let on. Ethan watched him over the rim of his coffee mug when Claire slid it over, the bitter heat grounding him as Samuel paused to wipe down a tray, wincing faintly as he bent. "Been here long, that guy?" Ethan asked, nodding toward Samuel as Claire handed him his change. She rolled her eyes, a smirk tugging at her lips. Forever Samuel Hayes, the relic. Should have retired years ago, if you ask me. Slows everything down. Her tone was sharp, dismissive, and Ethan's jaw tightened, a flicker of unease curling in his gut. He didn't push, just sipped his coffee, letting her drift back to the register. But Claire's words echoed Jenny's email, a thread he couldn't ignore. He kept his eyes on Samuel, tracking him through the lunch rush. The old man never stopped, plates in, plates out, a quiet rhythm amid the storm, yet no one spoke to him. No thanks or good job, just a busboy dumping a tray of dirty dishes with a careless splash that soaked Samuel's apron further. Samuel didn't flinch, just mopped it up, his lips moving like he was humming to himself. The turkey club landed in front of Ethan, crisp bacon, fresh bread, a side of fries he hadn't ordered but didn't mind, and he ate slow, letting the diner unfold around him. Everything looked right on the surface, food hot, tables full. The register ringing steady, but something felt off, a chill beneath the warmth Jenny had nailed in her email. Then he saw it, a young mom with 2 kids, maybe 5 and 7, finish their meal near the window, her curly hair frazzled as she dug through a worn purse at the register. Her face fell, a whisper slipping out as she leaned toward Claire, who frowned and waved over another cashier. Lucas, his tag read, a lanky kid with dark hair and a cocky tilt to his grin. They huddled, voices low but annoyed, while the mom's shoulders slumped, her kids tugging at her sleeves. Sensing the shift, Ethan leaned forward, straining to catch it over the noise. Samuel glanced up from his station, his hands pausing mid-wipe, and without a word, he dried them on his apron and shuffled toward the register. Ethan couldn't hear what he said. Too much clatter, but he watched Samuel slip a few crumpled bills from his pocket to Claire, his movements quick, discreet, like he'd done it 100 times. The mom's face softened, relief washing over her as she gathered her kids and hurried out, mouthing a thank you to Samuel that he waved off with a small nod. Ethan's chest tightened, a mix of warmth and dread knotting up inside. This was it, the kindness Jenny had seen, but it came from a man they'd laughed at behind his back. That's the 3rd time this week, Lucas muttered, loud enough for Ethan to catch as he leaned toward Claire, his smirk sharp. Old fool's gonna go broke 7 strays. Claire snickered, her voice low but biting. Like he's got anything to lose. Sleeps in that junker out back. Probably. Ethan's hands froze around his mug, the ceramic burning against his palms as he fought to keep his face blank. The manager, Nora Ellis, he remembered now, a harried woman in a black polo, bustled past, clipboard in hand, missing the exchange entirely as she barked at a waitress about a spilled tray. Ethan's eyes flicked back to Samuel, who'd returned to his station, stacking dishes like nothing had happened, his soaked apron clinging to his thin frame. He stayed another hour, nursing the coffee as it cooled, watching the pattern unfold. Samuel worked past what should have been his break. Ethan clocked the shift change when a younger dishwasher showed up, then left fast, leaving Samuel to pick up the slack. He scrubbed counters others ignored, mopped a spill near the kitchen. Without a word, even as a waitress snapped at him to hurry it up. Customers noticed him, though a gray-haired regular called out, "Hey, Sam, how's the knee?" And Samuel grinned back, "Holding up. Joe, how's the pie?" Small kindnesses that lit up the room. But Lucas and Claire didn't see. They huddled at the register when the rush slowed, whispering, their eyes darting to Samuel with a glint Ethan didn't like, a smirk that promised trouble. His plate was long empty when he slid off the stool, dropping a tip under the mug more than he'd meant to, but Samuel's quiet move with the mom stuck with him. He stepped outside, the mist thicker now, coating his flannel as he crossed to the rental park a block away. The diner's red awning glowed through the haze, a beacon he'd built, but Jenny's words, treated like dirt, rang louder than the bell. He slid into the driver's seat, the vinyl cold against his back, and dialed Tom, the line crackling as it connected. "Ethan, how'd it go?" Tom asked, his voice sharp with curiosity. "Mixed bag," Ethan said, his tone low, hard. "Place looks alive, food's good, crowd steady, but there's rot. Guy named Samuel Hayes, old dishwasher. He's gold helped a mom cover her bill, no fuss. But the cashiers Lucas and Claire, they're mocking him, calling him broke, useless. Something's off. Tom felt it in my gut. They're up to no good." Tom whistled low, papers rustling on his end. "Samuel Hayes been there 7 years, low pay, no complaints on file. Lucas Reed and Claire Morgan hired last year, couple write-ups for attitude, nothing major. You think they're the leak?" "Maybe," Ethan said, his eyes on the diner's glow. "I need eyes inside. Get me cameras, hidden audio too. Set 'em up tonight. I'm back tomorrow." "Risky," Tom said, but Ethan could hear the grin. "I'll call my guy cameras by midnight. What's the play?" "Watch him close," Ethan said, his voice dropping. "Samuel's the heart here. I feel it. If they're screwing him, I'll know. This ain't over." He hung up, the silence heavy as he gripped the wheel, the mist curling around the car like a shroud. Samuel's quiet nod to that mom replayed in his head, a flicker of the diner he'd meant to build, but Lucas and Claire's smirks. Old. Fool. Junker out back. Cut deeper. A warning he couldn't shake. He'd come looking for a dip in profits. He'd found a fight brewing under his own roof, and he wasn't about to let it slide. Ethan Brooks slipped through the doors of Brooks Eatery, Crestwood, Maine, just after the breakfast rush. The chime of the bell lost in the fading clatter of plates and the low murmur of mid-morning stragglers. The air carried the warm bite of pancakes and bacon grease, softer now than yesterday's lunchtime roar. But the diner still hummed, a steady pulse of life under the fluorescent buzz. He tugged his baseball cap lower, the brim shadowing his eyes, and slid into a booth near the counter, a folded newspaper propped in front of him as a shield. The worn flannel clung to his shoulders, damp from the Crestwood mist outside, and his sneakers stuck faintly to the linoleum, a gritty reminder of the place he built from nothing. Today wasn't just observation. Tom Wheeler had slipped in overnight, rigging hidden cameras with audio behind the register and dish station, their lenses tucked into light fixtures and vent slats. Ethan was here to see what they'd catch, to peel back the skin of his diner and find the rot beneath. The room moved slower, now booths, half empty, a waitress wiping tables with a lazy swipe, the kitchen quieter behind the pass. Ethan's eyes locked on Samuel Hayes at the dish station, the old man's white hair poking from under his cap, his apron already dark with water as he scrubbed a stack of plates. He moved stiff today, slower than yesterday, pausing to rub his wrist with a wince that twisted Ethan's gut. Samuel's hand shook faintly under the weight of a tray, but his focus held plates in, plates out, a rhythm that defied the ache Ethan could see in his stooped frame. He was gold, like Ethan had told Tom, quiet, steady, the kind of soul this place was meant to cradle. But Claire Morgan's should have retired, and Lucas Reed's old fool gnawed at that shine, a warning Ethan couldn't shake. He ordered coffee and a slice of pie from a passing waitress, her name tag read Kelly, her smile tired but real and settled in, the newspaper a prop as he scanned the floor. Claire was at the register, her ponytail swinging as she tapped out a ticket, her face blank until Lucas sidled up, his lanky frame leaning against the counter with a grin that set Ethan's nerves on edge. They whispered, heads close, there, eyes darting toward Samuel with a glint Ethan had clocked yesterday sharp, calculating, trouble brewing. He sipped his coffee, the bitter heat grounding him, and strained to catch their words over the hum of a coffee grinder behind them. The cameras would get it clear, but he needed the raw feel now, the pulse of whatever they were hiding. Samuel shuffled out from the dish station, a damp rag in hand, and wiped down a table near the window where a kid had spilled juice slow. Deliberate, no complaint even as he winced bending low. A boy, maybe 10, darted up to the register with a crumpled 5, his sneakers squeaking on the floor. "Can I get a muffin?" he asked Claire, his voice small. She rang it up, handed him the bag, then frowned as he dug through empty pockets. "I'm short $1, sorry," he mumbled, his ears red. Claire's lips tightened, but before she could snap, Samuel appeared, slipping $1 from his apron to her with a quiet nod. "Got it, Kid and Joy," he said, his voice soft, warm, like he'd done it 100 times. The boy grinned, bolting off, and Samuel shuffled back to his station. Oblivious to the smirk, Lucas shot Claire across the counter. "Here we go again," Lucas muttered, loud enough for Ethan to catch, his tone dripping with mockery. "Playin'. Hero with his last dime pathetic." Claire snickered, her voice low but cutting. "Yeah, like that's gonna save him guys a walking charity case." Ethan's mug froze halfway to his lips, his knuckles whitening as he fought to keep his face blank. He glanced at Nora Ellis, the manager, bustling past with a clipboard, her eyes on a stack of receipts, too harried to hear, too distracted to see. Samuel's kindness was a lifeline, a flicker of the diner Ethan had dreamed of, but Lucas and Claire twisted it into a punchline, their whispers coiling tighter around a thread he couldn't yet unravel. The pie came apple, warm, the crust flaking under his fork, and he ate slow, letting the hours stretch, the newspaper rustling as he flipped pages he didn't read. Lucas and Claire drifted apart when customers rolled in a trucker, a couple with a toddler, but regrouped when the lull hit, their heads bent over the register again. Ethan leaned forward, catching snatches over the clink of a spoon against a mug. "He keeps doing it," Lucas said, his voice a hiss. "Slippin' cash in makes it easy." Claire's eyes lit up, a smirk tugging her lips. "Yeah, Patricia's on to the shortages. We nudge it a bit more," pointed at him. "He's gone. My brother needs a gig twice as fast as that fossil." Ethan's blood ran cold, his fork pausing mid-bite as the pieces clicked shortages. Blame, a setup to dump Samuel for profit. They weren't just mocking him. They were hunting him. He set the fork down, slow and deliberate, his pulse hammering as he processed it. He'd come for a dip in profits, a cold staff vibe, but this, a conspiracy to frame a man who'd given more than they'd ever know, was a gut punch he hadn't braced for. He needed more, a thread to pull, and slid a 10 under his plate. Heading for a booth near the window where a woman sat alone, Jenny Carter, he bet, her curly hair and tired eyes matching the memory of her kids spilling milkshakes. Years back. "Mind if I join?" he asked, roughening his voice. She glanced up, nodded once, and he sat, keeping the cap low. "Regular here?" he said. "Casual. Testing. Used to be," Jenny said, her tone soft but edged, stirring her coffee slow. "Been comin' since it opened, loved the feel. Not so much lately." Ethan nodded towards Samuel, who'd paused to mop a spill near the kitchen. "What's his story, that old guy?" Jenny's face softened, a flicker of warmth breaking through. "Samuel Hayes, sweetest man you'll meet. Lost his wife to cancer years back. Sold everything for her Bill's house, savings, all of it. Lives in a trailer out back now. Sends what he can to the hospital still. Too proud to take help. Though works through the pain. Helps folks who can't pay. Breaks my heart how they treat him." Ethan's throat tightened, her words slicing. Deeper than the email, painting a picture he couldn't unsee, a man who'd lost everything still giving. While Lucas and Claire plotted to take the rest. "Thanks," he said, sliding out of the booth, his mind racing as he headed back to the counter, the newspaper forgotten. He ordered another coffee stalling, watching while Samuel stayed late. Again, scrubbing grease traps the night crew should have handled, his hands red from the heat. Lucas miscounted change for a trucker, pocketing a buck with a flick Ethan clocked. And Claire voided a ticket after a couple left, her fingers quick on the keys. They smirked at each other, glancing at Samuel like wolves sizing up prey, and Ethan's anger flared hot, a fire he banked for now. He needed the cameras, the proof, to nail this shut. Closing crept up. The diner emptying out, Nora barking at a waitress to clock out. Samuel still at his station, wiping down the last of the sinks. Ethan paid up, slipping outside as the neon sign dimmed, the mist thicker now, cloaking Crestwood in a gray haze. He crossed to the rental, parked a block off, and followed Samuel's beat-up truck when it coughed to life, trailing at a distance with his lights off. The old man wound through town, past brick houses and glowing storefronts, then turned onto a dirt track behind the commercial strip, a hidden patch Ethan hadn't known existed. Samuel parked near a cluster of trees, and there it was, a rusted trailer, barely bigger than a shed, its siding peeling, its steps sagging under his weight as he climbed up, shoving the door open with a shoulder. A single bulb flickered inside, casting a weak glow over a life Ethan couldn't fathom fitting into so small a space. He killed the engine, sitting in the dark, as shame washed over him, sharp, bitter, a flood he couldn't stem. How had he missed this? How had he let a man who'd built this diner's heart live like this, while kids like Lucas and Claire schemed under his nose? He dialed Tom, his voice low, tight. "Tom, it's worse than I thought. Samuel's living in a damn trailer, helping customers with pays, while Lucas and Claire plan to frame him, shortages, theft, the works. They want him gone for a payout." Tom's breath hissed through the line. "Jesus, Ethan framing." "Him? Cameras caught it?" "Hope so," Ethan said, his eyes on the trailer's faint light. "Check the footage, every whisper, every move." "I'm back tomorrow, this ends then." "On it," Tom said, keys clicking. "Stay sharp, this is ugly." "Yeah," Ethan muttered, hanging up as the mist curled around the car, his hands clenched on the wheel. Samuel's quiet dollar for that kid replayed in his head, a beacon in the dark, but Lucas and Claire's nudged it a bit more, drowned it out, a venom he'd let fester too long. He'd built this place for people like Samuel not to crush them, and tomorrow he'd tear that rot out by the roots. Ethan Brooks arrived at Brooks Eatery, Crestwood, Maine, before the sun broke the horizon, the gray Crestwood dawn casting a faint glow over the diner's red awning. The air was thick with mist, clinging to his flannel as he slipped out of the rental car, parked a block away under the same sagging oak. He barely slept. Samuel Hayes's rusted trailer haunted him, its flickering bulb a spotlight on his failure, while Lucas Reed and Claire Morgan's nudged it a bit more, looped in his head like a taunt. Today wasn't just another watch. He'd called Tom Wheeler at midnight, voice hard. "Get me the footage. Clean and sharp. I'm ending this now." Tom had delivered, texting at 3 a.m. "Got it, every word, every move. It's ugly. You're set for 10:15, plans locked." Ethan tugged his baseball cap low, the brim shadowing his eyes, and pushed through the doors, the chime swallowed by the quiet hum of pre-opening prep. The diner was still waking, lights buzzing to life, the scent of brewing coffee cutting through the stale air, a lone cook flipping bacon on the grill. Ethan slid into his usual booth near the counter, the vinyl creaking under him. A folded newspaper propped his cover while his heart hammered steady and fierce. He'd set this up with precision. Tom had tapped a local outreach contact, arranging for a single mom, Lisa Grayson, to come in at 10:15 with her kid, short on cash, a test to trigger Samuel's kindness and Lucas and Claire's trap. The hidden cameras hummed overhead, their lenses tucked into the register's shadow and the dish station vent, ready to catch it all. Ethan ordered coffee from Kelly, the tired waitress from yesterday. Her rough night met with a gruff, Yeah, keeping his voice low. His eyes sharp on the floor. Samuel Hayes shuffled in at 7 sharp, his truck coughing into the lot. His thin frame stooped as he climbed the steps, pausing to rub his lower back before disappearing into the kitchen. Ethan clocked the stiffness worse today, a limp he hadn't noticed before, but Samuel's hands moved with purpose, stacking plates at the dish station, his apron already damp as he prepped for the rush. Lucas and Claire rolled in together. At 7:30, their heads bent close, sharing smirks that twisted Ethan's gut. Nora Ellis bustled through at 8, clipboard in hand, her black polo wrinkled as she barked at a busboy to wipe those tables right this time. The morning crept on, breakfast crowd trickling in, eggs sizzling, the register chiming, Ethan sipping coffee that went cold, his pulse a steady drum as he waited. At 10:15, the door chimed, and Lisa Grayson stepped in, early 30s, dark hair pulled back, her daughter's hand tight in hers, a patched coat hanging loose on her small frame. They took a booth near the window, Lisa's voice soft as she ordered, "Grilled cheese for her, soup for me, please." Kelly scribbled it down, and Ethan watched, his mug forgotten as the scene unfolded. The rush picked up construction. Guys, a retired couple, tables filling fast, Samuel moving slow but steady at his station. Lucas and Claire trading glances behind the register. Lisa finished her meal by 10:40, her daughter giggling over crayons, and approached Claire to pay, digging through a thin wallet. Her face fell, a whisper slipping out. "I'm short, thought I had enough. Bank's still fixing my card." Claire's smile turned icy, her voice loud enough to carry. "We don't run tabs here, gotta pay up." Lisa's cheeks flushed, her daughter tugging her sleeve, and Ethan's hands clenched under the table, his breath shallow. Samuel looked up from his station, his rag pausing mid-wipe, and shuffled over, drying his hands on his apron. "I've got it, Claire," he said, quiet but firm, slipping a crumpled 10 from his pocket. Lisa shook her head, eyes wide. "No. Please, I can't. We all need a hand sometimes," Samuel cut in, his tone warm, steady. "Pay it forward when you can." Lisa's relief broke through, a soft "thank you," as she gathered her girl and left, the door chiming behind. Her Lucas smirked, leaning toward Claire as Samuel shuffled back. "Perfect, another 10 to play with," he muttered, loud enough for Ethan to catch, his eyes glinting. Claire nodded, her fingers quick on the register, voiding a line Ethan couldn't see. He forced his face blank, his pulse roaring now. This was it. The bait snapped up, the trap closing. The diner hummed on, plates clinking, coffee pouring until 11 rolled around, and Lucas crossed to Nora near the counter, his voice casual but pitched to carry. "Hey, boss register's off again. $20 short from that last ticket." Nora's head snapped up, her clipboard dropping to her side. "What? I balanced it at 10. How's that possible?" Claire chimed in, her tone syrupy with concern. "I saw something weird when that mom couldn't pay. Samuel was right there, fiddling near the drawer after." Ethan's blood ran hot, his mug trembling in his grip as Nora's frown deepened, her eyes darting to Samuel, who scrubbed plates, oblivious at his station. "You're saying he took it?" Nora asked, her voice tight, torn. Lucas shrugged, fake regret dripping. "Just saying. He's been around the cash a lot lately, and it's always short after. Maybe he's desperate, old guy like that." Ethan's vision narrowed, their lies coiling like smoke, but he held still 5 more minutes, let them dig deeper. Nora straightened, her jaw set. "This is serious. I've got the owner breathing down my neck about numbers not adding up. Let's count it now. Surprise check." She marched to the register, Lucas and Claire hovering close, their smirks barely masked as she punched keys, her face paling. $37 short today, over 100 this week," she said, her voice shaking. "Samuel!" she called, sharp and strained, crossing to the dish station. "Need to talk now." Samuel looked up, confusion creasing his weathered face as he dried his hands, stepping out to meet her. Nora flanked by Lucas and Claire like vultures circling prey. "Is something wrong?" Samuel asked, his voice soft, steady. But Ethan saw the flicker of worry in his eyes as Nora squared her shoulders. "Register's been short all week. Today's 37 alone. Right after you were near it with that mom." "You stealing?" "Samuel?" The diner hushed, forks stilled, heads turned. A waitress freezing mid-pour, Samuel's face registering shock, then a deep hurt that cut Ethan like a blade. "Stealing?" Samuel said, his voice trembling faintly. "I was helping her put money in, not taking it. Always do." Lucas stepped up, his tone slick with pity. "He's been at the drawer a lot. Nora no reason for a dishwasher to be there. Money's gone every time." Claire nodded, her eyes wide with fake concern. "On his pay?" "Sounds convenient. I saw him linger yesterday, too." Samuel's hands shook, his apron dripping as he looked around, bewildered. "I'd never take a dime, not from here, not from anyone. This place kept me going." Nora's face twisted, torn between trust and numbers, her voice cracking. "I've always liked you, Samuel, but this multiple witnesses, cash missing, I can't ignore it. Policy's clear on theft." Ethan's chest burned, the air thick with injustice as Samuel stood silent, dignity intact despite the weight crushing him. Lucas moved closer, a smug, "I'll grab his stuff," slipping out, and Ethan snapped. "Not necessary," he said, his voice cutting through the hush like a whip. No rough edge now, just clear, commanding. He stood, peeling off the cap, letting it drop to the table as he straightened to his full height, the flannel falling open to reveal the steel in his stance. The diner froze, Nora's gasp sharp, Lucas's smirk vanishing, Claire's eyes widening as Ethan crossed the floor, his stride steady, deliberate. "Mr. Brooks?" Nora stammered, her clipboard slipping. "I didn't know I was here." Ethan finished, his tone cold, his gaze locking on her, then shifting to Lucas and Claire. "Been here 3 days watching, listening. Thought I'd see a profit dip. Found something uglier." He pulled a small device from his pocket, Tom's footage rig, connecting it to the TV mounted above the counter, the screen flickering to life as gasps rippled through the room. "Nora says the cameras are broke," he said, his voice carrying, calm but lethal. "Funny, I had new ones installed 2 nights back, hidden with sound. Let's see what they caught." The footage rolled, Lucas pocketing a buck from a trucker's change, Claire voiding a couple's ticket, their whispers crystal clear. "Nudge it more." Pointed at him. "He's gone." Then, yesterday, Lucas, "My brother needs a gig." Claire, "Sick of his charity act depressing." The diner erupted, customers muttering, a cook swearing under his breath, Lucas's face draining white, Claire's hands trembling as she backed up. "There's more," Ethan said, advancing the clip. Samuel slipping $1 for the kid, a 10 for Lisa, staying late to scrub grease traps. He's quiet. "We all need a hand," echoing through the speakers. He paused it on today, Lucas, smirking, perfect, another 10. Claire's quick void, their setup laid bare. "This," Ethan said, his voice tight with fury, "is your theft framing a man who's given more than you'll ever know." He turned to Lucas and Claire, their eyes darting for an exit. "You didn't just steal cash, you stole from him, from this place, from every soul who trusted us." Lucas forced a laugh, shrill and desperate. "Mr. Brooks, this is a mix-up. We were just—" "Save it," Ethan snapped, his voice a blade. "You're done fired now. Police are outside, call them at dawn with this footage. Theft. Fraud, take your pick." Claire's sob broke, mascara streaking, but Ethan's gaze didn't soften. "Only thing you regret is getting caught." The door swung open, 2 cops stepping in, badges glinting as Ethan nodded them over. "That's them. Evidence is here." Lucas lunged for the door, but a burly regular blocked him. Arms crossed, and Claire crumpled, her pleas lost. As the cuffs clicked, they were hauled out, Lucas cursing, Claire sobbing, the diner watching in stunned silence. Ethan turned to Samuel, still by the dish station, his weathered face a mask of shock and quiet dignity. "Samuel," Ethan said, his voice softening, stepping close. "I owe you an apology, not just for today, but for letting this happen under my roof. You're the heart here, I see that now. I failed you, but I'm fixing it." Samuel's eyes met his, clear and steady despite the tremor in his hands. "No need, Mr. Brooks. You didn't know." "That's no excuse," Ethan said, firm. "You're not washing dishes any more effective now. You're floor manager. Salary, bump, benefits, hours that don't break you, and that trailer? Done. I've got a house 3 blocks over. Yours. No rent. No catch. Your wife's bills? Paid off this morning. Hospital's clear." Samuel's composure cracked, tears welling as he gripped the counter, his voice a whisper. Why? Me?" Ethan's own eyes stung, his hand firm on Samuel's shoulder. "'Cause you reminded me what this place is for people, not profits. You lived it when I forgot." The diner erupted, applause rolling through, customers standing. Kelly wiping her eyes as Nora nodded, her clipboard forgotten. Ethan faced the room, his voice steady. "This stops here. No one who works for me suffers again. We're changing, starting now." Samuel stood taller, dazed but whole, and Ethan exhaled, the weight lifting just enough. Lucas and Claire were gone, their poison purged. But this was bigger, a promise renewed, a fight he'd finish for good. Ethan Brooks stood outside Brooks Eatery, Crestwood, Maine, the late afternoon sun slanting low over Crestwood's brick-lined streets, painting the diner's red awning in a warm golden glow. The air carried a crisp bite, the mist of the past. Week burned off by a dry breeze that rustled the leaves and swept away the last echoes of the storm that had shaken his world 3 months ago. The sign above hummed softly, its neon steady now, and the windows gleamed, reflecting a scene Ethan hadn't seen in years. Tables full, laughter spilling out, a vibe that felt like home again. He adjusted his jacket, simple, no blazer today. Just denim over a button-down, and pushed through the doors, the familiar chime ringing clear as he stepped inside. His sneakers scuffing the polished linoleum dot, the diner buzzed with a new rhythm. The scent of frying burgers and fresh coffee curled through the air, sharper now, cleaner, paired with the clatter of plates and the low hum of chatter. Customers filled the booths, a mix of faces, young and old, white and black, a construction crew joking over fries, a mom wiping ketchup off her kid's chin, greeted by staff in crisp aprons, their smiles real, their voices warm. A black man in a faded jacket sat at the counter, digging into a turkey club, the same sandwich Ethan had ordered Undercover, nodding as Kelly, the waitress, refilled his coffee with a "How's it taste today?" Ethan's chest loosened, a quiet pride threading through the exhaustion that had dogged him since that climactic morning when he'd ripped the mask off Lucas, Reed, and Claire. Morgan's scheme. 3 months since he'd stood in this room, cap on the table, cameras rolling, and turned the diner upside down. The fallout had been swift. Lucas and Claire hauled off in cuffs, their names mud in Crestwood by nightfall. Headlines screaming, "Eatery cashiers caught framing elderly worker," across local papers, and ex-Ethan hadn't stopped there. He'd spent the weeks after an overdrive, holed up with Tom Wheeler and a team he'd pulled together. Kelly from the floor, a labor lawyer from downtown, a couple of line cooks who'd seen too much under Nora Ellis's distracted watch. The board 3 investors he'd roped in for expansion had squirmed at first, one grumbling this'll tank us, but the public wave Clara Monroe's exposed picking it up. Hashtag Brooks for All trending had shut them down fast. Sales dipped. 7% that first week, but they've climbed back, steady now at 3% above pre-scandal, fueled by reviews like "Best spot in town feels human again." It rolled out changes, hard and fast living wages across the chain, health benefits kicking. In next month, an emergency fund for staff hitting hard times, a hotline plastered on every menu. Not right? Tell us straight to me. Training wasn't optional, 2 days mandatory. Run by Kelly and a consultant Ethan had snagged from a fairness outfit, drilling every hire on respect, no exceptions. The zero-tolerance policy had teeth to cooks. From the North Side branch caught skimping tips, gone by sundown, their aprons yanked before the ink dried on the write-up. Crestwood, Maine was the proving ground. Ethan here twice a week now. No suit, just eyes and ears, watching it take root. Samuel Hayes stood near the counter, his white hair tucked under a new cap, his apron swapped for a navy polo with floor. Manager, stitched in white. He moved slower than the kids darting around him, a faint limp still there, but his shoulders were straighter. His eyes bright as he coached a young busboy, early 20s, nervous on clearing a table right. "Wipe the edges too. Jake makes him feel welcome," Samuel said, his voice steady, warm. Ethan crossed over, leaning against the counter with a grin. "Looking good. Samuel place humming like it should." Samuel turned, a small smile breaking through. "Didn't see you sneak in, Mr. Brooks. Thought you'd be off running the Empire." Asterisk. "Empire's here," Ethan said, nodding around. "How's the crew holding up?" Samuel's grin widened, pride flickering in his lined face. "Solid training sticking. Took a bit with the old hands. Too much fuss, they said, but they're seeing it now. Customers stay longer. Tip better, had a lady yesterday. Say, feels like you care again." Ethan's smirk softened, the knot in his gut easing. "That's the goal, keep it rolling. You're the spine here. Don't let Em forget it." Samuel blushed, shifting his weight. "Still getting used to it, managing folks, not dishes. But it's good, real good. Never thought I'd be here, not after." His voice trailed, a shadow of Lucas and Claire's venom crossing his eyes, but he shook it off. "Thanks, Mr. Brooks, for all of it." "Don't thank me," Ethan said, clapping his shoulder firm. "You earned it, guts and heart. That house treating you right?" Samuel's smile grew, soft but real. "Moved in last month, first night in a real bed in years. Still sending pictures to my girl in Portland. Tells me I'm living fancy now." Ethan chuckled, the weight of that trailer fading a bit more. "Good, she's right. Stick around, Samuel, your family here." Samuel nodded, heading back to Jake, leaving Ethan to drift through the floor, his eyes tracking every move like a hawk dot. The changes weren't just talk. He'd made damn sure of that. Nora Ellis got to sit down 2 hours, straight, Ethan laying out where she'd missed the rod, keeping her on but with a new rule. Eyes open, no excuses. The oversight team, 5 sharp minds, including that lagger, had logged 20 complaints. Chain-wide, half legit, all fixed fast. A waitress in South Crestwood shorted on hours. A cook here overworked, paid up, and shifted. Ethan had pushed a Brooks Day, last month free coffee, half-off specials packing the place with locals, Samuel handing a burger to a single dad, Kelly slipping a cookie to a kid in patched jeans. Sales spiked after, word spreading. Brooks Eatery's real now cares. The ripple hit beyond Crestwood, Maine. Clara's piece had sparked a fire, other diners in town squirming. Owners issuing "we're reviewing" statements as customers posted their own gripes on X. Got ignored. At Pete's Grill, where's my Brooks vibe? At chain 2 towns overfired, a manager caught on video snapping at a black family. Brooks set the bar. The thread read, tagging Ethan's handle. A rival owner, Jack from Crestwood Kitchen, called him last week. Voice tight. "You've got us scrambling. My crew's training double now." Ethan had laughed, sharp. Catch up or close your call. The scene was shifting slow, grudging, but Brooks Eatery led it. Sales ticking up. Loyalty blooming. Only spot I trust. One regular posted. Lucas and Claire were ghosts. Now Tom had the dirt. Lucas crashing with a cousin. Claire waitressing at a dive bar out of town. Their names poisoning Crestwood's tight-knit food world. A staffer leaked Lucas had trashed his locker on the way out, punched a dent in it. Petty and broke, a shadow of the cocky kid who'd thought he'd won. Ethan didn't dwell, they'd swung and lost. A lesson etched in the diner's new pulse. He found Samuel again near the kitchen pass, checking a ticket with Kelly, his voice calm as he sorted a mix-up. A regular Joe, the gray-haired guy from. Day one called out, "Sam, pie still good?" Samuel grinned back. "Best in town, try the apple today." Ethan's chest swelled. A quiet victory settling, and Samuel wasn't just surviving. He was thriving. The heart of this place, beating. Strong. His phone buzzed Tom, his voice crackling with energy. "Ethan numbers are up, 4% this week." That Brooks Day clips viral, folks, loving Samuel's vibe. "Chains buzzing. You seeing this?" "Yeah," Ethan said, watching Samuel hand a coffee to a trucker. His nod warm, easy. "Feels right here alive again." Town. "Catching it yet?" "Oh, they're feeling it," Tom said, a laugh in his tone. "Diner on 5th just posted fair pay signs, copying you hard. You're the spark, man." "Good," Ethan said, his smirk returning. "Next stop, Phoenix Branch. Heard their floors shaky, book me in, quiet next week." "On it," Tom said, keys clicking. "Night. Ethan, you're rewriting this game." "Night. Tom, keep pace?" Ethan shot back, hanging up as the diner's glow wrapped around him, a promise he'd keep. That night, he sat in his office, Crestwood's lights sprawling beyond the window as he scrolled X threads praising Brooks Eatery. A few gripes about too soft now, but the tide was his. Samuel texted, "First month managing done. Feels good." "Thanks again." Ethan typed back, "You're the rock, keep it up." He leaned back, the quiet settling in, his mind drifting to that first email from Jenny Carter. What's happening? She'd come by last week, kids in tow, grinning as Samuel slipped them extra fries, a loose end tied. The fight wasn't over. Some investors still balked. Other branches needed work, but Crestwood, Maine was proof it could shift, a blueprint. He'd take wide. The town was watching, changing, and Ethan Brooks was the name driving it. A legacy not just in food, but in lives he'd lifted, one plate, one stand at a time.